Hey, hey,
Hi.
How's it going?
Hi.
hey, how are you guys?
Good, and
Good. How are
you?
you?
Good. How are you?
Good, good.
Excellent. Fantastic.
No,
It's nice
just
to see
living.
you.
Yeah, you too. It's been
It's been about
quite
4 years.
some time.
Yeah.
I haven't shaved my hair, or shaved. I haven't cut my hair in a little over a year now. So
Nice.
yeah, it's been crazy year.
Very nice. Yeah, it's been interesting. It has been an interesting last 18 months, whatever it is now
Time
at
has
this
no
point.
meaning at this point.
Yeah, yeah,
It's a little crazy.
exactly. What am time? So, all right. Well, John, thank you so much for joining. These are my co-hosts, Kate and Calissa.
Hey guys,
Hi.
Nice to meet you.
nice to meet you.
Yeah, the three of us met on Teen Wolf and became best friends pretty much instantly. And now we're doing a podcast about the show.
Nice, awesome.
Yeah, so we've been talking to a lot of cool people, and now it's your turn, sir. So
Right on.
you better have some really great answers for all these questions.
Hope so.
No, all the interviews have been fantastic. We've been having a wonderful time doing this, and it's just been great talking with cast and crew about something we all love.
How many have you done so far?
17.
Oh, nice.
Oh,
Yeah.
We'll
Seven.
still
Wow,
keep track.
Yeah, I was like,
It's very simple math. So 12 plus 5, 17. Other than that, I can't do it. So I'm not good with math. But all right. Well, let's jump in, shall we?
Sure.
All right. So, John, how did you get into the visual effects side of filmmaking?
Well, it started back in Minnesota where I was living, and I was working for a swimming pool company. And I was just sort of, first or second year in college, working for this company. It was a family-owned business, and I knew I wasn't going to raise up anymore unless somebody died. And so I borrowed $2,500 from my folks to buy an Amiga computer. This was, I think, like 1990, I want to say.
Yeah.
And the Amiga computer is one of the first graphic computers out there. And I decided I was going to teach myself computer graphics.
Mm-hmm.
And within a year or two, I had sort of transitioned working for a company that sold a product called the Video Toaster, which was the card that went in the Amiga computer. And they kind of called it the studio in a box. And one of the coolest things on it that I found was a program called Lightwave 3D, which was I couldn't draw at all, but I could think in 3D. And this thing had a little stage built in with a camera and lights, and you could position them and put in CG objects. And I fell in love, and I knew that's what I wanted to do. So I sort of became the default Video Toaster guru, and I had my own column in the Lightwave guru. I had my own column in the Video Toaster magazine, and I went out to the company that made it called NewTek, and they had me come out and beta test. And then in the early 90s, like late 92, they were going to be providing Lightwave for a show called Sequest, which was just starting up. So they flew me out there to train the artists how to use Lightwave. And, I got there, and after a week or so, they said, "So you want to just come on out here and work?" I'm like, "Yeah, okay, I'll do that." So I came out and worked on Sequest for the first few years of my Hollywood intro, I guess.
That's awesome.
So cool.
Cool.
Yeah, it was so much fun, and learned so much. And it was like I was a total Hollywood neophyte. I didn't know anything about Hollywood, but it was cool, and we'd do a bunch of stuff, and I loved it, and just stayed with it, year after year, and now here we are. I'm doing the same thing.
That's so cool. I remember the Video Toaster magazine, and I also that was Dana Carvey's brother.
Yeah, Dana Carvey's brother. Dana's brother, Brad Carvey, was one of the inventors of the Video Toaster.
Yeah, I remember the magazine, and I distinctly remember Will Wheaton's Uber 1990s video commercial about putting the power of the network in the power of the people's hands and all that. And it was incredibly awesome. And you can find it on YouTube, ladies and gentlemen. I suggest everyone watch it. It's incredible.
I met Will at one of the New Tech always had great parties. Like every year they'd have parties and have celebrities out. And I met Will at one of those, and we kind of clicked a little bit. And I remember I was leaving, a couple days later, and he goes, this was early. Must have been 90, I don't know, 90, 91, 92 or something. He goes, hey, email me. My email address is 5127952@CompuServe.com. I'm like, okay. You can even remember that, but those were fun days, going out to the parties and just being part of that group.
That's awesome. He was on Star Trek then, right? That was.
Yeah, that was. It might have been just after he was like off the show. Like he wasn't on like for the last final seasons of Generation.
Okay, nice. That's awesome. That's just fantastic. That's such a cool story.
Yeah.
And you worked on Sequest, which I adore. I watched every single episode with my mom.
Nice.
I think it was Friday nights, and it was so good. Roy Scheider, later Michael Ironside, and the Dolphin and the Stinger, and all that, and then Robert Ballard doing the little.
He was awesome.
Thing.
Yeah, he came out and he would like consult, and he would come and teach us stuff, and he'd like talk about plate tectonics and how they do stuff. And then he kind of fell out of favor with it because Sequest was pitched to him as like Jacques Cousteau meets 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. And after, halfway through the first season, it turned into, I don't know, something that wasn't that.
Yeah.
So he kind of like stopped coming by and things like that. But in the very beginning, he was there probably 3-4 times. And, he'd explain things how like you can only see about 10 feet in front of you underwater. So in reality, it should be super murky. And we were like, well, we had to create cities underwater and things like that. So you take a lot of creative license.
Yeah. That's awesome. So cool. So cool.
So I'm a big fan of Arrested Development and Dear White People, being comedy and dramedy shows respectively. They're not the kinds of shows that you typically associate with visual effects. What kind of effects did Muse VFX do for those shows?
For both of those, we did a lot of split screens. And split screens are something that they never used to do, and now shows do it all the time. And a split screen is basically when let's say you shoot 4 or 5 takes of 2 people talking on a couch, and you like the action of the person on the right in take 1, and you like the action of the person on the left in take 3. So you kind of split it down the middle and you line it up. And often what happens is the camera moves slightly between the different takes. And so we've got to either blow one side up or move it or stabilize it and things like that. So Arrested Development did a lot of like face replacements and split screens. Like there were times when I think this was season 5 where Ron Howard was off doing a movie, but he was supposed to be in the show. He was having like a party in his backyard. And so what they did is they had a stand-in for Ron Howard, and then they shot Ron wherever he was filming on green screen. And then we would take Ron's head, chop it out, and put it on top of the stand-in body. So it looked like he was back in the yard with everybody there at the party when he was never there.
Oh my God, that's blowing my mind.
Yeah, me too.
I remember that scene. Had no idea.
Or shots like, I remember one where Henry Winkler was, I think they were in Mexico, and he was on his motorcycle and he was trying to catch up to their van, and they just had a stunt guy doing it. So we'd take Henry's face and just stick him in the under the motorcycle helmet. It's things like that. There was a lot of split screens with like George Sr. and Buster. I think they're in jail, and those were tough because they cross, like their arms would cross or stuff like that, or they'd have an arm on the shoulder. So you'd have to take the arm and the hand from one take and try to marry that into a different take. It's a lot of stuff like that.
That's cool.
That's really
cool.
Interesting.
And Dear White People, kind of similar. A lot of split screens. A lot of that stuff was just phone comps where they would be doing their Instagram or something on their phone.
Yeah.
Things like that. But that was mostly just sort of cleanup work and split screens and painting out boom mics and stuff like that. There's visual effects in everything. I mean, like as simple as, you can't show the Apple logo on the back of a laptop. So you have to paint that out, or somebody's got the boom mic in the shot, or crew reflections all the time. If you're like in a car window, you'll see the cameraman and stuff. And so we're always doing stuff like that.
Yeah. I guess with like logos on the backs of computers and stuff, it's like digital Greeking where you don't have to go in with like a piece of tape.
Yeah.
Right.
or whatever to put there anymore. And so that's cool. That's really interesting. You talk about split screening, because I know like David Fincher loves that. Like he loves stitching takes together, because he's like, no, that his reaction in tape 45 was what I want there, and her reaction in tape 27 is what I want. And that's really cool. And I remember George Lucas doing that. The first time I remember that was like in Phantom Menace, where they showed, I think Ben Burt was editing, and he was like, no, can we get Liam Neeson's his take? Right. And then in this big wide shot, and that's Liam Neeson from a different take, and that's everyone else from a different take. It's like, well, how do we get this in there and all that? And it's just stuff like you don't think about, I guess.
They did that for the Phantom Menace?
Yeah, for the Phantom Menace, when they're running the blockade of one whole ship. And yeah, it's like this big wide shot of everyone in the cockpit of that ship, and everyone's just standing there. And so Liam Neeson's talking, and it's like it's a different take than everyone else in that shot. And I guess you're always like, well, it's visual effects. It's the T-Rex in Jurassic Park coming out. It's like, nope.
Yeah, to me, I
put two shots together.
I sort of prefer the invisible visual effects, like in Forrest Gump, as opposed to like that same year Twister came out. And Twister to me was like, hey, we figured out how to do a cool tornado. Let's write a movie around it. Forrest Gump was, if you didn't know that Lieutenant Dan didn't really have legs, if you didn't know the actor, you'd think they'd hired an actor with, no legs or something.
Yeah.
So,
that's cool.
A funny story about one of the early Spider-Man movies we worked on. There's a scene with James Franco where he was playing Peter's best friend, Harry Osborn. And there's a scene where he leans forward and he's doing something, and they like the face reaction from one take, but the body reaction from another. And so we had to basically do a face replacement on his own face and warp it in and make it all work. And that thing took us like a week to 2 weeks to get right, just because it was such a difficult, weird sort of task to do.
That's crazy. Wow.
I feel like I could never, no matter like if I just became like a super like showrunner or something like that, I don't think I could ever be like, guys, I want y'all to spend $50,000 to put a face from one take on a body of another. I'd be like, just that take, just that one right there. Yeah, we're good. Let's move on. Let's go.
Yeah, you've got power when you get to like say which takes you want. And there's one of the Star Trek movies we worked on. We didn't do this, but another company did. But there's a scene where William Riker was, I think he was laying on top of Troy and he was kissing her and he had his shirt off. And Jonathan Frakes refused to shave his back. He was really hairy. And so one company had to paint out all the hair on his back just because he was like, no, I'm not going to shave my back. Like, okay.
Oh my God. I like it when she runs her fingers through my hair.
Oh, God. Oh, William.
Poor Troy. Poor Diana Troy.
For a Voyager episode, we had to paint out Chakotay's butt crack because he was going on a vision quest, and I think they had him in those super tight pants that make you look like you're nude. But you could see like his butt crack, so we had to paint it out to like make it blurry. It's stuff like that happens.
Okay.
Go ahead, Will.
No, I'm nothing.
You don't want to talk about like the crack or anything?
No,
I was absolutely thinking about, so it'd be like, how was work today? It'd be like, great. I painted a butt crack. That was what I did. I am the Michelangelo of butt cracks.
Yeah, we for one, it was a HBO show called Luck, and they had a whole bunch of goats, but they filmed with female goats, but they wanted male goats. So we had to add goat testicles to all the goats.
Okay, Michael Mann, let's calm down with the testicles on the goats. Oh my God.
Was there a reason they needed to be males? Was it like part of the story?
I think it was part of the story, yeah.
Okay.
And they only had females on the day or something like that.
I'm just imagining them being like, it's good, but you know what would make it except is it goat testicle good though?
Okay, Michael Mann, I take it back.
You don't know, goat testicles are very large.
I didn't know that. Learn something new every day.
Today I learned.
Yeah.
So you've just given some like great examples, but is there anything particularly to Teen Wolf that fans might be surprised to find out was visual effects?
I would say there's probably a few different things. I think mostly the set extensions, like we shot at I think it's called Blue Cloud Ranch, and they had this just a little tiny section that was sort of a doorway and a little bit above that. And it was supposed to be a Mexican church. So we built the whole church around what was basically a doorway. And same for the inside. We shot like from up on a hill, we shot a couple actors coming in the door, and then we added the whole inside of the church.
Oh,
so
wow.
It's things like that where, there's another one where Derek used to live in the penthouse, and there are all these stairs that were supposed to go up to it. So there's this shot that we had to extend the stairs down, 10 floors or something like that. And it's really just what was built on set was 4 stairs going up to the door. So it's things like that I think look fairly real that people just don't, or even on, I think it was the last episode where there's that kid werewolf that was being chased by hunters through like puddles and stuff. And the whole look of that day, that was shot on a couple different days, and the weather was different on the 2 days. One was sunnier, one was gloomier, and they wanted sort of a sunsetty sky, and so we had to like change all the sky. We rotoed everything out and made the sky a sunset and added reflections to puddles and things like that, where that kind of stuff you never really think about, as like visual effects.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely not. That's so incredible to learn about. Like, the attention to detail, like even like the reflections in the puddle. That's so cool. Were you a fan of the original Teen Wolf movie coming into the TV show?
I was. I liked it, and it was campy. And I have to say, I was really happy that the TV series wasn't, because I think that would have just been kind of bad. You can sustain that for a 2-hour movie, not 100 episodes. It's just,
yeah.
And the time had passed, I think.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I think it's definitely time for a moodier teen angst Teen Wolf.
Yeah. Inject some stakes into that story. There are no stakes in that movie. Like, it's just nothing, but it's fun. It's fun, so how did Teen Wolf come into your life?
I had a salesperson that was working for me. When was it? Like 2010, 2011? Yeah. Okay. So I had a salesperson working for me, and he had some contacts at MTV, and somehow he got Joe and Russell and Jeff to come visit. And we just sat around and talked, and I showed them some stuff. They asked some questions. Then they disappeared for a day or two. And then Russell called me up one day and asked me how I would shoot certain things. And it was basically for the pilot, it was Scott bounding off of trees and stuff that they wanted to do. Excuse me. And he just basically kind of asked me a bunch of questions. And then a few days later, they said, okay, I think we want you guys to do the pilot. And I don't know if they were ever really like sure, like if it was going to work out. But then one day there's a scene where Scott's in the woods and the deer's bound out, and he drops his inhaler. And those were all CG deer. You can't get real deer to do that, and they're dangerous. And so we showed them some early tests of that. And I remember after that, I looked outside, and Russell and Jeff were out there talking and smiling. And I walked out, and they were going, "You sold us. That's the thing." Awesome. So, ever since then, it's like we did all the effects for all the episodes.
That's awesome.
It's really incredible.
That's so cool. Oh man. Speaking of that sequence, because the shots with those deer is just so fun and unexpected. Like I feel like you're only like 5 minutes into this show, and then you get these wonderful, very moody gothic-y shots out in the woods, and then all the deer come rushing, and it's very intense and startling. And then, of course, that leads right into the alpha that you see for just frames and all that. And what was that process like of just figuring out how you were going to do the alpha for the pilot?
Well, at the time we did the alpha actually a couple times because they came back and we did some reshoots, and once the pilot was picked up, then we went back and changed some things to make it better. And in the original, Jeff, it was sort of like a Jaws moment. He just wanted to see like some glowing eyes. We don't want to really see anything else. And so we did that. And then later on, they decided they wanted to see a little more. And I think we ended up with something jumping over the log to bite Scott, I think is how it worked out.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, even the shot where he's like out on the highway and you look down and the bite marks and the blood, that was all CG as well. Like all the blood.
Wow.
I mean, they had a little bit of practical, but we had to augment the practical with.
That's so. I just was like, oh, well, that's an appliance and blood.
Yeah,
that's so cool.
We did a lot of wound enhancements for Teen Wolf. Like, somebody might get shot in the head and, blood would drip out, and because you can only do so much with practical, and sometimes it gets dried under the lights, or there's not enough, or there's from shot to shot, because they maybe shot it on 2 different days, or before and after lunch or something, there's different amounts of blood, and so a lot of wound augments.
Wound enhancing. I like that. That's great.
Also for the pilot, we came back and we redid the scene where I think Stiles shines his light down and sees the body torn in half.
Oh, Scott. Yeah.
Scott. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, we redid that and added more guts and gore in there than the first time around.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Oh, I love that.
And the alpha wasn't really decked out for a few episodes because they built a costume, but like that wasn't built for the pilot. That wasn't built for, I don't know when the first time we saw that. That was maybe 4 or 5 episodes in. And we matched it in CG because they were never quite happy with the costume. Sometimes it looked a little too rubbery or too, whatever. So, there's a lot of that kind of stuff where you've got to augment a costume or sometimes replace it, or, do something like there's full CG shots that the guy in the rubber suit couldn't do, for instance.
Right. Yeah. I don't think we see we don't really see a lot of it, but I think like 107 Night School is kind of when you get the costume, like in some shots and, very quick shots, and then augmented with y'all's wonderful work. But I think we hold back until Night School before we even show anything. So
and there's a scene in that where he's in the gym and he looks up and he howls, and they shot the guy in the rubber suit doing that. And I remember because he had white tennis shoes on, because we were going to replace his, and it ended up the suit didn't look good, so we ended up actually painting him out and doing that all CG.
Oh wow.
And then we were able to do a little bit of a different camera move on it and sort of follow him up as he roared into the sky and stuff.
Amazing.
That's awesome. That's so cool.
So when it comes to something like the scene with the deer, how do you approach visual effects to make sure it's something that will hold up over time?
Well, sometimes you can't because you don't have the time to do it. And I think a perfect example of that is the CG beast from season 5. I was never quite happy with the beast because, you're turning around a show every week or two, and, some of those episodes had a couple hundred shots, and there's just so much you can do so fast with like full CG. So the idea was to always kind of hide it as much as you can, but sometimes you have to see the whole thing. And things like that, like when I look back in that now 10 years later, it's like, that doesn't hold up so well. The deer, I think, hold up pretty well because
they do.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, because we had time on the pilot.
Mm-hmm.
We probably were able to work on the pilot for 8-9 weeks maybe, or something like that. So, but and the pilot was maybe 50 to 60 shots. Mm-hmm. Whereas like the end of season 5 with the Beast was 250 shots. So, and it's like, okay, got to turn this around in like 3 weeks. So you do the best you can. And, with the technology you have at the time.
Yeah. Maybe I feel like with a shot, like with the deer, is that it's nighttime and moody. And so you're really hiding a lot of stuff. Cause I always think of like Jurassic Park, perfect movie, just perfect. But the shots of like when they first see the dinosaurs and it's the big brontosaurus and all that don't really hold up anymore. Right. But the T-Rex stuff is like perfect, like photoreal, completely perfect. Right. But that's all like nighttime in the rain. So it's like we're hiding as much of it as possible. You mentioned the Beast, and my absolute favorite visual effect shot for the entire series is when it's like broad daylight and he's walking through the snow and transforming. And that's so awesome. And just not what you expect, I think, from a werewolf transformation, because we've all seen, American Werewolf in London and stuff on our show where it's like the body changing and ripping, but then it's like all this smoke and stuff. It's like this completely opposite thing of what you'd think of a transformation. It's
those shots were fun. I also really like the demon wolf transformation in, I think, season 3, maybe with
3A.
And it's like they're in the barn and he's slowly walking and talking and he's transforming into the demon wolf. And while he's talking, so we're replacing his face with a CG face over time and having to match his lips, and then the eyes go at the end. And that, I always like that shot too.
That's good. Y'all did good work.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite Teen Wolf creature?
I kind of like the alpha from the first season, especially at the end, like in the last episode where Scott's fighting Peter, and like you see, like he gets hit and you see Peter's face sort of transform for a little bit.
Love that shot.
Yeah, I love that shot.
And those shots I think hold up really well too.
Oh yeah,
And
incredible.
part of that was because those were shoots we reshot, and I was able to be there because first and second season shot in Atlanta and we were in LA, so I wasn't there hardly ever. Oh, actually, I never went to Atlanta. We sent one person once. But those reshots were done, and I was there and was able to talk to Ian and kind of told him what we were thinking of doing. And so his reactions and the way he moves and like moves his face just really helped that kind of stuff. So when you can be there and walk the actors through what they need to do to help the visual effects work, it's, those really work well.
That's awesome. If there wasn't anyone from the effects company out there, like, I mean, were they even putting down like tracking markers and stuff? Or
I would get a lot of calls and like, hey, John, we're thinking of shooting it this way. What do you think? And so I would talk to them about how best to shoot it. And they did pretty well. And, at times it's just like, just do it and we'll make it work. And it's like things with like all the Canema stuff and the Canema on the ceiling and all that stuff was shot with nobody out there to oh, wait a minute. Did we shoot that here?
Some of it was here. I remember for the season 2 pickups.
Actually, I think the Canema on the ceiling we shot here, and I was there for that.
Yeah,
that's sort of some tough stuff.
Yeah.
But all the other Canema stuff, like, when we would shoot and there's no tail, we would just like, we'll just make it work. There's enough on the suit itself to track to, and and then we had a CG version of the Canema also for shots that we didn't have a person in there.
Right.
So
cool. So much work, but so cool.
So if you could be any Teen Wolf creature, what would you be?
I kind of liked, I sort of like the guy that had the chameleon powers, where he would
right, yeah. Wall. Season 5, yeah.
Yeah. I can't remember what the character's name was. Michael, maybe, or I don't know.
I don't remember.
Yeah. But anyways, I thought that was kind of cool, but in the end, I'd probably want to be a wolf, I think.
Keep it classic.
Yeah.
You mentioned this a little bit when, or we've talked about this a little bit, but I guess like when you were able to work with the actors a little bit and be on set? Like how exactly were you, like what direction or were you giving them to be like, hey, this is what we're doing, so here's how you kind of need to move, like with David Ellison as the Kanema, or like you were saying with Ian as Peter and getting punched in the face and knowing that you're gonna do this ripple effect across his face? Like how are you talking to the actors when it comes to stuff like that?
So good.
So good.
I would basically tell them what was going to happen and sort of try to get them to envision what we were going to do in the future. And like Tyler was really good at that. Tyler Posey was always good at that. There's a scene where I think it was season 3 or where they're driving along and they're in Lydia's Prius and they run into the deer and they smash the deer. And so they had a Prius that they smashed the front and smashed the glass. And then Scott was supposed to touch the deer on the hood, and the deer is all CG. So I was there and I just told Tyler to like, all right, imagine the deer is going to be here. Its head is going to be here. It's going to be smashed through the windshield. You're going to touch it. It's, give it about a foot between the top of the hood and the thing. And it should be good. And so they get it and they figure out what to do. And, it just works out. Another one was the twins, Max and Charlie Carver. Mm-hmm. Like they had to do this thing where they transformed into this twin alpha that basically turned into a monster alpha. And so I had to like talk them through like what it was going to be and how to move and like push themselves into each other's back and stuff like that. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
That transformation is really interesting. And I especially love the shot where their spines are coming together and they're kind of like rippling, and it's like human zippers where like two spines are sort of coming into one spine. That part looks so cool.
Yeah, and all that was Jeff Davis basically saying, this is how I want it to come together. It's like, and then we did a couple tests and say, is it like this? Is it like this? And Jeffy would even draw me pictures of what he kind of envisioned. And I never gave this to him, but he drew one on the back of a script of the one twin pushing his hand into the back of the other twin. And he said, like, this is what I'm thinking. And then they shot that exact thing. And so I have that script, and I was always going to create a picture that was like the script on one side and the shot on the other. And I never did it.
Oh, that's still cool.
I always wanted to give that to him. Maybe cool. I will if I find it. I'm not sure where it is anymore.
I hope so.
10-year anniversary present.
There you go.
How many people worked on your team for Teen Wolf?
At the smallest, we had probably about 8 or 9, and at the largest, I'm going to guess about 16 or so. In between, mostly artists, a producer, and a coordinator. And then I was usually the one that once they were back in LA, I was the one that went out on set all the time. I think maybe once or twice I sent somebody else, but I liked it. It was such a great crew and everything. I had a lot of fun being there.
I remember talking with you on set, John. You might remember this horrible incident where it was when the guy in the tank in season 5, when doing that process of him regenerating and turning into Pete Plotchick, but I lost the cap of your Apple Pencil. And to this day, I feel really bad about that.
I think, didn't you buy me a new one? Or?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought so, yeah.
I felt so bad. I just felt really bad.
But I looked for that thing for a long time because the floor was so dirty.
It was like wet and like the art department had done everything and it looked like so gross. It wasn't really gross, but it was just like, it's awful. But it was great seeing you work because, like when they're setting up shots and they've got the guy, it wasn't, it's Pete Plotchick by the end, but then it's a stunt actor with all the goop and all that on. And y'all are figuring out like what the angle is. And it's like, well, he's going to transform in this shot. So like, how does it work with him moving forward and in and out of shadow? And that was fun to watch because that's like how the sausage is made that you don't really, when you watch this final beautiful shot, you're like, that's amazing. And you're like, well, that took hours like on set. And then with artists back at the effects house doing all this stuff. And it's so interesting seeing how all that worked. And
yeah, those are crazy times.
Indeed.
Is there a type of creature or monster that you've never created but would really like to create using CGI?
We have done so many different creatures. We've done birds and bats and deer and pigs and rats and mice and squirrels and dinosaurs and smoke monsters and, all sorts of stuff. I don't like, I guess maybe like a kaiju or something. We haven't really done any of those.
That'd be fun.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, that would be a lot of fun. A Bigfoot, perhaps?
Will's obsessed.
Bigfoot, maybe.
Will's obsessed with Bigfoot. So
a kaiju would be fun. Just a giant tentacly monster destroying buildings would be.
Will also loves.
We don't need to talk about that part. Moving on.
Like Pacific Rim?
I do. Those are fun movies. Those are just fun movies. I love Guillermo del Toro. And his work is always great to watch. And Pacific Rim is just great. It's just giant toys.
Yeah, we worked on the first Hellboy with them.
I know. I love that movie.
That was great. That was a lot of fun because we started with only 35 shots that they wanted us to do. And because we were a TV house, we like, as soon as we had film work, it's like, you get how long to work on these shots? It was like, great. So we were cranking out shots like nobody's business. And he was always happy to get our shots. So when we did dailies with him, he would always look at ours last because he usually approved ours. And we ended up, when the movie was done, we ended up doing like 230 shots for it.
Oh, wow. Now, were those...
That movie was a lot of fun too.
I love that movie. When it comes to stuff like that, where they're adding shots now, are these shots that were going to be with other effects houses, but they're like, let's give those to John and his folks. Exactly. Okay. Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah. So we ended up doing, we did Hellboy's tail replacement. We broke the horns off of his head. That whole bit where he sticks his fist in the obelisk and it lights up.
Oh, right. Yeah.
The blood running through the little maze thing on the floor.
Wow. That's cool.
All the Abe Sapien dry for wet stuff was us.
Oh, where you put in like the little particulate to make it simulate being underwater?
He was shot just dry, and then we had to add water around him. And like there's a scene underwater where he's got that talisman on his wrist, and it catches on something. That was all CG.
That's cool.
Because, it had to float there. And
right.
Also, his suit didn't have eyelids, so we added all the eyelid blinks.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So by the end of it, you were definitely an expert at CG fists. Between that and Teen Wolf.
Oh yeah.
Fist experts.
There you go. Gotta specialize.
How has the industry changed since you got started?
I think it's the technology is so much better. Like on Sequest, I remember for third season there was a shot where okay, follow me here. The Sequest, there's an alien race that traveled all the way to Earth to take the Sequest back to their alien world to fight an underwater battle because they didn't have the technology on their world to fight underwater, but they could travel across the galaxy and grab the Sequest. And then so after the Sequest does all this fighting, it ends up back on Earth, and there's this shot where it appears in a cornfield, and it was a big tilt up in a cornfield, and the Sequest is laying there. And that was before there was any type of tracking software. So we hired somebody to write a program that would analyze the pixels and figure out how to track it in there. So we could just, so we could stick it in there and make the camera move and match to that move, the practical move. Now that stuff, we do that every single day. The tracking is like, you can do it in Final Cut or iMovie even. Some of the, not as sophisticated, but there's lots of that kind of stuff. So I think the technology is getting much better and much faster. Where like back in those days, I couldn't imagine tracking a CG face onto somebody's face. I don't know how we would have done it at the time. When I got to Hollywood, Jurassic Park was the first big movie big CG movie that was just coming out at that time. And Sequest was, one of the first television shows that was all CG with no practical models. And that was big for the time too, is Sequest and Babylon 5.
Yep.
I'll have to go watch a Sequest episode. I've never seen one before, but I'm very interested to see it now.
They were okay, especially the early ones were kind of fun. And I like my office mate and I, we were the ones that built the Sequest. I built the head, most of the head, and he built most of the back end of it. And we had the programmers of Lightwave and Modeler 3D. They would come out and visit us every couple of weeks because we needed tools that weren't in the software yet. Like there were no splines to build anything, and the Sequest was all this curvy thing, and you couldn't build it out of polygons. You had to have splines to, you draw splines and then you extrude polygons along them. And so they were inventing stuff for us all the time to get the show done.
That's so cool. It's so
like lens flares in CG software were unheard of before Lightwave. And the reason we had them add lens flares was because we needed to have little point lights underwater. And so those were little flares that you could adjust the intensity of.
Yeah.
Now flares are common in every software. Like After Effects has flares.
Yeah. Thank you, J.J. Abrams.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
No, I remember when Sequest first came out, like in the lead up to it, like a lot of the advertising campaigns were like completely CG, like no model, like remember
that's what they were saying that?
Yeah, I remember because I remember, they're like I remember it was like in Entertainment Weekly or something like that, where they were like, this thing doesn't exist. It's not like when they shot 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, they had a model, or, Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, where they had a giant 16th scale model. And they're like, nope, it's all done in the computer because Steven Spielberg and Robert Ballard and computers.
The real reason it was done in the computer is because they got a bid from ILM to build the Sequest model, and it was $1 million.
Oh my God.
And they're like, that's going to be our effects budget for the whole first season. So they needed to do it. And Lightwave came on board and said, look, we can do this. And they sort of convinced them they could do it in Lightwave. And, I remember we had, like when we started there, we had 24 Amiga computers with a video toaster in there. And that was our like render room. And we thought, oh my God, we're never going to need anything more than this. And then about a month and a half later, we had 48 of them in there because it just like, every computer had to have its own video toaster because Lightwave ran on that card at the time, software based. And still, it's going back to technology, it's never enough. As soon as you have faster rendering, people want things done faster, or you need more power to render because now you're doing full CG humans or something like that, as opposed to, I don't know, CG airplanes or something.
Right. I know. I remember like on with the way technology grows and the complicate and how it gets so complicated, like on the Two Towers, they talked about like Treebeard and how like his face took like one frame took like 24 hours to render. And it was just because it's so immensely detailed and complicated. And it's like, it looks so good, but my God, all the computers running to get all that done. Oof.
We had a scene in Sequest that it was, I think this was also the episode where Sequest jumped the shark, but it was a giant underwater Poseidon with a trident, and he had trapped the Sequest under the trident. And there were all these particles. We had to do all these bubble particles coming up. It was like glowing particles around the trident. And particles are something that, especially back then, took a long time. And because every single frame had to render on one computer, they didn't split frames up at the time. That thing took, I think, 3 days to render one frame in the middle of that, where there's like 1,000 of these particles. We almost thought we weren't going to be able to deliver because it was taking so long. And you don't know when it's going to be done. It just like keeps going until it's done.
Oh my God. I don't know if I could do that. I don't know if I could do that, but somebody had to do it.
We were making it up as we went along. We had no idea how to do it. We just, it was new.
That's so impressive.
Yeah, it's very impressive that someone's like, can you do this thing? It's impossible, but can you do it? And you're like, we can try, and it's just like, I'd be like, no, I don't know, build a giant submarine. Let's do that.
We would do that a lot, especially like after Sequest was done and I started my first company after that. I would have people come, like I would have like one of my coordinators or producers come up and say, hey, the client's asking if we can do this, this, and this. And I'm like, I don't know. Let's say we can do it and we'll figure it out. So it's like, what's the saying? Necessity is the mother of invention.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Fantastic. So, what was your process when you would get like a new Teen Wolf script to figure out the best way to implement any visual effects that would be needed in that particular episode?
We would usually get an outline of it, which is like, okay, here's the outline. These are the beats that are going to happen. And so that was my first, like, okay, we know like there's going to be a full CG beast or there's going to be this or this. So that's when I would go and start talking to artists and say, okay, this is what they want to do coming up in, episode 50, whatever. And we kind of run the beats and we sort of brainstorm on how to do it. Then we'd get a script. And then I do a breakdown of the script. You read it through, you mark everything that's a potential visual effect. Excuse me. And then I'd write notes in the margins and things like that. We'd break it down. We'd do an initial bid on it, present that to Jeff and Joe. They would say, oh, this is too much, or we got to do this, or start thinking about how we could do this different. And then we'd typically have like a visual effects meeting if there's a lot of visual effects. Either that or I talk on the phone, but I would usually come into the studio and sit down with the first AD and Joe and the director and the DP and the stuntman or the stunt coordinator and maybe makeup effects people. And we talk about initial stuff. Then, a few days later, we'd have a production meeting where everybody's at and you talk about certain things. And that's when, you shout out, like, if we're going to shoot on blue screen, I would tell wardrobe not to wear blue clothes or things like that. And often at those times after the production meeting is when I'd get together with the stunt coordinator or the makeup effects guys crew. And we talk about, okay, would this be best to do as practical or CG? And we basically compare like how much it would cost. We think it's going to cost this much to do it makeup. Oh, I think I might be able to do it cheaper. That would usually win out. Or it would be a combination of the two where we'd have to like take practical a certain way and then we would augment it.
Gotcha.
And we would do a lot of that on the makeup anyways, like on like Scott's like peak and the ears and everything. Sometimes like after a little while, you'd see like the edges flap up or, you'd see the netting underneath the edge of the wig. So we were always cleaning that stuff up if like they couldn't get to it on set or
right.
It's like that's pretty typical where we work together to try to figure out the best way. Nice. Same with the stunt coordinators. We'd figure out like we'd walk through a fight and what needs to happen and then determine if where CG might take over. Like there's the Hellhound fight in the school hallway. Mm-hmm. Where Parrish was fighting the other Hellhound. Yeah. And that was all practical, except where I think he throws Parrish up in the air, I think it was. And we, like, at some point we took over as the whole Hellhound. Just for like, one shot or something like that. And that kind of stuff's pretty common, like, especially if somebody's going to jump off a roof or, whatever it might be. We would like kind of figure out the best place to, where it got too dangerous for the stunty to do the work.
Nice. Very cool. What was the most, oh, I'm sorry.
I know that we've mostly talked about it, but Calissa, did you want to ask about the abandoned mall scene specifically for Jay?
Sure. Yes. We have a fan question from JYoung22 on Instagram. She was wondering if you could tell us anything about the abandoned mall scene.
Yeah, that place really stunk. It was creepy and old, and it really was an abandoned mall. That I don't remember where it was. It was somewhere in
Hawthorne.
Oh, great, yeah. But it smelled like I don't know, old fish or something, or it was just kind of weird. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff we did in there where, I think we had it was the pack of alphas that were fighting, and Derek and we were there all night shooting. I mean, it was there are a lot of shots in there because I think every one of those werewolves came and did something. I can't remember the character name, Kayla or Kalia or something, where she slides down the
Kali.
Oh, yeah. She slid down the thing and her toenails had to dig in. So those were shots. There's a big fight on the escalator, and then I think one of the alphas plunged down 30 feet or something.
Derek.
Yeah.
The mall wasn't that deep. It was just one floor down, so we had to extend that down 3 stories or something like that.
So when he's falling, is that entirely CG, or was there a stunt person performing that?
I think it was all CG. Was that Derek that was falling, or was it
Derek?
It was Derek, yeah.
I want to think that was CG, but I can't remember because I don't know if there's enough room to do the stunt down there. There's enough room for Charlie and Max. They were up on the second floor and they had to jump down, and they jumped into I always thought this was funny for stunts. They basically put a whole bunch of cardboard boxes together, and that's sort of what breaks their fall. It's not like these big airbags you expect. And I guess that probably happens if it's, going off a 10-story building or something. But for a 1-story drop, you're jumping into cardboard.
Interesting.
With mats underneath it, maybe a foot thick mat or something like that. But it's cardboard boxes that sort of just break your falls.
That is insane to find out.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think that did they merge into the Monster Alpha there? I think they probably did.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
Probably. I mean, why not?
Because they're both there together. So I'm guessing they did. Excuse me.
Nice. What was the most complicated visual effect you did for Teen Wolf?
I think I want to say it was probably some of the Beast stuff, with the one you mentioned with the smoke going around in the transform. Also at the end where Parrish basically grabs the Beast and the smoke is happening and the Beast sort of flies off in smoke, and that kind of stuff was probably some of the most complicated that I recall. Some of the CG Canema stuff was pretty complicated, like jumping up on the ceiling and making those run and look good. Some of those turned out really well. With the big Canema Derek fight was a lot of CG Canema jumping in there, and CG tail. It always had a CG tail for all those shots.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's probably some of the Beast stuff. Cool. Mostly because, especially that last episode, there are so many shots, and I remember being in those tunnels. We shot in there for 5 days, I think.
Wow.
That whole sequence at the end, that was brutal because it was so long. Although some of the most brutal shoots were that road that we used to shoot on, Will, for where the deer slammed into the car.
Yeah, over
really close to studio. But I remember being there the day before Christmas break, and it was so cold. Oh, it was so cold. And we shot all night because it was a night shoot. So you basically shoot from 6 at night till 5 the next morning. Ugh.
Kate and Calissa both have experience with Teen Wolf cold.
Yes, we were
do.
cross extras.
Oh, right on.
Spectators.
Audience, yeah.
Also, that barn shoot in Acton was horrible because it was so dry and dusty.
Mm-hmm.
And then we shot all night, and then it was so far away, and you drive home during rush hour. So you get stuck for 2 hours on the road.
Yeah.
after you're dead tired from being there all night.
Not fun. Not fun. That's a really cool effect shot in that barn where the guy does the spiral in the sheet metal and it's all the sparks and all that. That's wonderfully done.
I love that shot.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a good example of matching to a practical, because they had a piece of that had the real spiral in it. And then they had a piece that didn't have the spiral. So what we did was they had the piece in without the spirals. He did it to match. We added all the sparks and all that. And then when we go off of that shot, then we broke and we replaced it with the one with the spiral in it. So it's there for the rest of the scene.
That's cool.
So we only have to expose it.
Yeah.
Then it's practical for the rest of the scene.
Very cool. Very cool. Great shot.
Yeah, Teen Wolf was a lot of fun. I thought the stuff we did in the time we did, I'm really proud of it, because everything looked pretty decent. There's a few clunkers, but all in all, I'm pretty proud of it.
And it does still hold up 10 years later, even the first season, stuff still looks really cool. And some CW shows, unfortunately, like WB, you look at them now and you're like, oh, not always great.
Throwing shade.
Yeah.
I love a lot of those shows. I'm just saying.
Coming for you, Vampire Diaries.
So
did you ever see the Vampire Diaries take on the Teen Wolf title sequence?
No.
I'm sure it's on YouTube. Somebody took I think the music from one and put it on the other, or they did the Teen Wolf title sequence in Vampire Diaries style, or vice versa. It's kind of cool. You should check it out.
Well, if they put Dino's music over theirs, it would be a very nice glow up for them, because you could just film someone sitting at a table and play that music, and it would be the greatest title sequence ever.
Right.
True.
Yeah,
it is awesome hype up music.
That might have been what they did, if I remember, but it's one way or the other.
Nice. We'll have to look that up.
Yeah.
If Teen Wolf were to return in some capacity, be it a spinoff or a reboot, would you be interested in returning to Beacon Hills?
Oh, hell yeah, for sure. I doubt there's anybody on that crew or cast that wouldn't want to be involved with something like that again. I think it was such a great crew, and it was a lot of fun, and it was I think that comes from, a fish rots from the head down, but also something good happens from the head down as well. And I think that goes to just say how great Jeff was on that show, and what a family he created, and it was a lot of fun. And everybody, I thought, got along really well. I mean, obviously there are times when people would blow up at each other. I remember Jeff yelling at Russell a couple times and vice versa. But it's, that's what families do. And, all in all, I thought people got along really well. There weren't any actors that were big divas that I remember. It was a really fun experience.
Except the deer. Deer are
awful,
notorious prima donnas. That's why they got replaced with CG.
We did have a white dog in one episode where they went to Japan, I think, and that dog never did what they wanted it to. They could not get that dog to act at all. And animals and kids, it's you get what you take. Yeah,
exactly. You're right. I mean, every job you have bad days, and I mean, that's just life. But on Teen Wolf, it was whenever there was an argument or people butted heads, it was always because everyone was trying to make the best show possible. Yeah. Where it's just we're always working towards this goal of doing something awesome, and that's what the argument is. It's trying to find the best way to do awesome, and thankfully, I think we succeeded every single time.
I totally agree, 100%.
You mentioned working with Tyler Posey and Ian Bohen for scenes. Do you have any other fun cast stories you'd like to share?
I remember when Max and it was Charlie Carver and Colton came back in the last season, and there's that that time where everybody was in the white plaster kind of costume stuff, where everybody was frozen. And I have some pictures of this, but I've never shown anybody because it's very sort of sexual in nature. Charlie and Colton were making some sexy statue poses, which
go on.
I wouldn't put those out or anything.
It would be a terrible shame if you misplaced those in my inbox.
A little risque, but they're fun. I've got a fun shot of Posey. This was out in the woods at I don't remember. We shot. It's in the Calabasas area. Down you go down, and there are all these woods we used to shoot at all the time. And this was with the Ghost Riders. Yeah. And I've got Posey playing his guitar. Like we're at Video Village, and the Ghost Riders are doing something, and Posey's playing his guitar to like the Ghost Riders, whatever. He's like trying to put music to the Ghost Riders, like motions and stuff. And that was pretty fun. He's really good.
That's awesome.
He's a talented guy.
Yeah.
There's little things like that. I can't even remember. I'm just like sitting around and joking with people, and everybody was so nice. Sometimes projects like the cast doesn't eat lunch with you. They go in their trailers and eat and stuff. But these folks were always really down to earth.
It's fantastic.
We had a lunchroom at the stage that was right on the opposite side of wardrobe. And so you're right. It's like you just go in there at lunchtime and there's just cast scattered everywhere, and there's monsters sitting and eating, and cameramen and makeup effects guys and the writers and people from production. And it's just like it was one giant room that everybody came and sat in and had fun for lunch and all that. It was always great.
Yeah. That was a really nice setup because you had all the stages there, then we had editorial there, the writers room, everything was there.
It was great.
It was easy to go and talk to anybody anytime.
Yeah. It was awesome.
Yeah.
And we were totally spoiled as fans getting to do a full set tour with everything there.
Those were fun. A couple times I brought like my niece I brought once. And I remember I think Posey like posed with her and did some stuff, and everybody's so nice, and it's so cool. Like you take them and like, here's Scott's bed. You can lay down and here's the house, and there's the stairs, and and here, look, it's the library, and all that stuff. Yeah, it's like it's thrilling to be on the set for the first time. Yeah, like when I first came out here, and we had the run of Universal, and we would go like sneak on the Sequest sets when they were building them and stuff like that, and it was so cool, like when you're not used to that and you get on those for the first time. Yeah. And while we were there, they were doing the first Flintstone movie. Oh, so cool. They had all the Flintstone cars and stuff all over the place. That was really cool.
So fun.
Yeah, that's very fun.
Wow.
And the Sequest set that they had the main Sequest on with the swim tubes and everything for Darwin, that was also the set that they shot the big Phantom of the Opera scene on back in the 20s or 30s. And it was also the set that they shot the Jurassic Park scene where what's his name gets stuck on the Jeep and the little guy spits on him.
Nedry. Yeah.
Yep. Where he like slides down in the water. That was right on where the Sequest tank was that Darwin would come up and Roy Schneider would talk to him and stuff.
Oh, that was a set?
Yeah,
I totally thought that was just on location. They were like, no, just pump a lot of rain down there. It'll be fine.
That set was because it's got water in it. It's got, I think it might also be the set where they shot, I could be wrong about this, but I think it might be the one where they shot the It's a Wonderful Life scene where they're dancing on the gym floor.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I love that bit.
Yeah.
Really cool.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Don't quote me on that, but I think that's the same set.
Well, you've said it. I believe it. So that's fine.
It's also the set where William Shatner was a guest on one of the Sequest episodes, and he had to get into the pool with Darwin and swim. Yeah. And his hair kept kind of coming off slightly.
That happens.
Yeah.
Hard to keep that glue on there when you're all soaking wet. So
Yeah.
that's all right. I can't remember if I've asked this already. I know I asked about complicated visual effect, but what was your favorite visual effect? It was something with the beast.
I think it's some of the beast stuff. The demon transform. It was a lot of it was the hitting of Peter in the face. I also, there's one shot I always like too, where Kira, like she jumps across and she's got her sword, and then the aura of the wolf forms around her. I always thought that one looked kind of cool too.
That is my second favorite shot of the entire series. It is actually the desktop right there and the desktop right here. Yes, no, that's just such a great shot. It's just elegant with the aura of the kitsune coming off of her as she leaps across the classroom. Yeah. So cool. God, y'all did a good job with that stuff.
Yes,
and like awesome. The shot where Scott sees the kitsune when he's got his alpha vision on, and it's like pointing at something, and Kira doesn't know what's happening, but the thing is communicating with him. And it's like, oh, all that stuff is so good. So good.
Yeah, gosh, we did so many different things for that show. There's so many different creatures and transformation. I also like in the very first episode where Derek first transforms, but it's all behind glass. It's all
that's one of my favorite shots.
Yeah, so good. And I don't know if you guys ever saw the first Derek makeup. It did not look good. It looked kind of like Mickey Mouse. It had a really big.
Oh wow!
I think Jeff told us it looked like a werewolf in drag.
Oh right, yes,
drag wolf.
Yeah, but we haven't seen it. I'd like to.
Well, we never saw it because what we saw behind was just Derek walking, and then he was in makeup, and we had him walk again, and we sort of did a blend between the two. And I thought it turned out really good, and it was a difficult shot to do, but it worked well.
That wasn't motion control or anything, right? I mean, that's just pushing the dolly right back and forth.
Yeah, it was just like I remember talking. I think it was Russell talking to him and just saying, just try to like have the camera go at the same speed each time, and we'll make it work. And that's a lot of that is how we did it.
I mean, y'all did a fantastic job. I mean, especially for something like that, where it's like, we really need a motion control camera for this so that we can do it perfectly every single time. It's like, nah, we got it.
Just eyeball it,
Just eyeball it. It's totally good. Because I mean, the shot's perfect. Like, it's just so good.
It worked
and
well.
It's so good.
That is one of my favorite shots. It's so subtle and elegant. And I feel like that's exactly the kind of shot that just doesn't age.
Yeah, totally.
It just looks perfect still,
That's also the genius of Russell coming up with these transitional type shots that are so cool. Like Outlander's full of those, like tilting down into the fish tank, and then I think we're in the water or something. I mean, there's just all sorts of these cool transitions that he comes up with. Like that was his idea. I'm pretty sure it was. It might have been Jeff's. Jeff's good that way too.
Yeah.
Both
everyone's really smart on the show.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of like it's an embarrassment of riches when it comes to the talent on the show. So yeah.
And that's also why it made it so much fun and people enjoyed it, because you were right before. Everybody had the goal of trying to make that the best, show they could.
Yeah, it was great.
You mentioned obviously that the Beast and the Kanema were obviously very visual effect heavy, but how much did a typical episode of Teen Wolf have? How many visual effects were in an episode?
I was looking through the quotes the other day just to sort of refresh, and some of them, like the lowest one I found had about 25 shots. And then the biggest one was probably like 285 or so.
Wow.
Whoa.
So I have a feeling that, over 100 episodes, we probably average 60 shots an episode or more.
Mm-hmm.
And no, I'm sorry. Oh yeah, no, probably around 60 shots an episode. I kind of did the math. If you figure like, okay, that clocks out to about, that up to 6,000 shots for the series. You divide that by about 3 seconds, a typical 3-second shot, which is pretty common. That comes out to about 5 to 6 hours of visual effects for, the whole series.
Yeah.
Which is, we had, 6 years to do it. So I guess that's a good amount of time, but
it's respectable.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
It's a lot of quality work.
Yeah. You recently worked on a movie that was co-written and co-directed by Tyler Schnabel, who was the stand-in for Tyler Posey on Teen Wolf. How did that come about?
He just asked me if we wanted to be involved. We've kind of stayed in touch since Teen Wolf. We're Apple buddies. We're both big Apple fanboys. So we talk a lot. We text a lot about Apple products and stuff. We actually have a group chat that's all about people that are just Apple fans. Cool. So like we've done a couple movies with him now. We did the Fraser Park one where we did some blood on a horseshoe for him. And then the last one, the Cocoon one, where, he came to me and says, we need this weird looking bird with feathers and multiple colors. And, and we just needed to fly around at the very last shot. So it's like, all right, we'll figure something out.
Nice.
So, yeah. So we're, I've done a few things. I did some stuff for Ian and Lydia did this short little film together, and we did some stuff for that. And we're currently doing some shots for Dylan Sprayberry for a project he's doing.
Excellent. Wow, awesome.
Excellent.
So cool.
Yeah, we kind of like keep in touch, and every now and then they go, hey, I've got this or that. Are you interested? I'll always like help out a fellow Teen Wolf buddy if we can.
Oh, it's amazing that you guys still collaborate on things outside of Teen Wolf.
We were working on a show for FX called Legion, and we had to design this for the first season. We designed and built this creature that hatches out of an egg, and it's this little mutant chicken, and it crawls around. There's goop and everything, and we wanted to do a 3D print of it that we could give to the people on set so they could hold it and put it down where it needed to be. And so I went to Eric Horn, who was one of the makeup effects guys on TV.
Yeah.
He had a 3D printer, and he's like, yeah, I'll print those for you. So, awesome. And we've been in touch a couple times over, sometimes he'll text me or write to me and say, hey, I've got somebody that's looking to do this and this. Are you interested? And so it's sort of this group little thing that, we try to stay in touch if we can.
Nice.
The Teen Wolf Alumni Association.
Yeah. We had Eric on a previous episode, and it was great talking to him.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
Speaking of Legion, did you work with Naveed Negabon at all? I think he was the Yellow King. He might actually, he might not even be in the first season, because it's just that little weird gremlin guy, I think, in the first season. And then in season 2, it's Naveed.
We worked with him. I didn't personally, somebody else was on set. But there's a scene where they did this big sequence in the white room, like this white void area. And there's one where I think we raise up on him, and he's got a bunch of kids around him. Mm-hmm. And then the little black creature crawls up on the lens on the side. And so we did the creature and also did the expansion of the white room.
Very cool.
And then there's that whole sequence at the end where the creature gets really big, and at the end, it's running towards David in the red room, and David hits it with his boot and then captures it in a pickle jar.
Yeah.
Holding it up and shaking it. And that was all us.
Nice.
And
awesome.
And so that was a lot of fun, that little creature. Legion was weird. The season afterwards, we did a giant sow that had all these teats that shot out smoke that people would like smoke. It's just like, Legion is a crazy show.
I've got to go back to Legion. Clearly.
Oh my God, I dropped off too early on that.
Same.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I watched the whole second season. I didn't watch a lot of the third season. We didn't have, we just did a few episodes of the third, like the pig ones. But it's like, it's funny. Teen Wolf is one of the few things that we've worked on that I've watched all the episodes. It's like, I actually enjoyed like, hey, all right, Teen Wolf's on. I want to watch it. Like, and Arrested Development is probably the other one. I love Arrested Development. But
nice.
We do NCIS. We've done it for 18 years now since the pilot. And I've seen maybe a full episode.
Burn NCIS.
It's a little embarrassing, but it's okay.
Well, Teen Wolf and Arrested Development, rarefied air. So it's good.
It's so funny how, despite having just teen right there in the title, Teen Wolf appeals to such a vast audience. Like my grandpa loved the show whenever it was on stuff. He was the one who was like, "You should watch it."
I guess the other things we worked on that I've watched them all has been the Star Trek stuff also.
Nice.
We did Voyager and Enterprise, and I did one episode of Next Generation. And we did Deep Space Nine, so we did all those series.
Nice.
Every other episode we'd trade off usually.
Oh, very cool.
Foundation Imaging, which did Babylon 5.
Nice. So y'all were just kind of ping-ponging back and forth to keep everyone free because there's so much work going on.
We would trade off every other episode. There were 2 supervisors on it, actually 3 at times, but they would each do separate episodes. And so there's this whole Dominion War thing in Deep Space Nine where we built all the Federation ships and Foundation built all the Cardassian and the Dominion side ships.
Very cool.
And we would trade them off if we had to use one or the other for different episodes.
That's very cool.
That was a lot of fun because they delivered the practical models to us so we could measure them and stuff. So I remember they sent the Defiant over, and that thing, they could barely get it in the door. It was in this huge crate.
Oh, wow.
The Defiant was probably 6 feet across or so.
Yeah.
And we had the old Reliant and the Enterprise. Yeah, it was just so cool getting those ships in to kind of sit there and look at them and measure them. And same thing when we built the Voyager. That was the first full CG ship. And I remember we would go and take measurements of it and stuff over at a place called Image G, which is where they shot the motion control for the models. And those guys hated us. Like they just hated that they were going CG on that. And maybe they saw the writing on the wall or something.
Yeah.
And so by the end of Voyager, it was all CG. And then Enterprise was no practical models at all.
Yeah.
It was all CG.
Yeah. Interesting Star Trek fact that I find interesting is that I think it's Defiant was the first ship in a Star Trek episode or movie to actually travel 3D, where it's like, because you see like all the ships come together and it's like, well, space is infinite all around you, right? And I think the Defiant's the first one that kind of comes up like kind of perpendicular to another ship, because it's like space, you don't have to be pointed in any direction.
I know they did that on the Enterprise on the very last episode of Next Generation.
Yeah.
They had it fly up and blast a Klingon ship apart.
Okay, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the commentary that does sound right.
Might have been too, but we did the Defiant destruction in one of the Deep Space Nine Dominion Wars.
Nice. That
was really a lot of fun to blow those ships up in CG because they would never blow up the practical ships. They would just pop explosion elements over them and then they'd be gone.
Right.
Once we started going CG, we could fly pieces around and all sorts of stuff.
That's awesome.
I had a really hard time not making a Dominion voting machine joke during
Amazing.
Here's a fun model fact for Star Trek. Do you know what the Borg cube was made out of?
What?
If you buy a model kit,
I know what you're going to say. Yes.
Put together like airplanes or anything model. They come in these plastic frames, and you twist the pieces out. You're left with all these little leftover bits that have little nubs all over. Mm-hmm. And what they did is they just took a whole bunch of those and pieced them together, and that's the Borg cube.
That's cool.
Really?
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Using all the parts of the buffalo.
Yeah, exactly.
Innovative.
You've talked about this a little bit, but so what was it like working with Jeff?
Jeff was great. I would say Jeff was probably, if not the best, definitely one of the best showrunners I've worked with. He was collaborative. He'd give us ideas and then kind of stay out of our way and just, come up with something cool, or this is what I'm thinking. Can we do this? He was great. I mean, it's really great when when a client wants to work with you during, the process, as opposed to just, here's a bunch of stuff we did, now make it look good in post. And we have clients like that. but most of our clients are really collaborative, and the earlier we get involved, the better. And, you know, we always were involved very early with Jeff.
Nice.
As a matter of fact, we did another thing with him. He did Let the Right One In.
Yes,
it didn't go, but we did stuff for that. And then a couple times, as a matter of fact, right before the lockdown last March, I met Jeff out. We had lunch and we talked about, I think it was Night Gallery we talked about. He was working on a Night Gallery thing, and we were going to do a shoot on the Teen Wolf stages, do a shoot for the first couple pages to sell it as a teaser.
Yeah.
This was like maybe a week before lockdown happened, so it never happened.
Oh,
that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to the next project with him. You know, for a while, he was developing War of the Worlds, and we were doing some tests on that on the tripods. And then he was doing Aeon Flux for a while. And so like during all of these, he's always involved us, which has been great.
Yeah. He's back on Aeon Flux for over at CBS.
I heard that. I was talking to Ed Abrams the other day, and he mentioned that.
Yeah, so hopefully it'll go, because that's a very cool world. I mean, that whole MTV Liquid Television show was way ahead of its time and very crazy. But to see Jeff's spin on it would be pretty awesome. Fantastic, I think. So, yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
So you worked on shows with vampires, werewolves, and witches. How do these supernatural shows compare in terms of visual effects?
Every client wants the vampires they're doing, or the werewolves they're doing, or the witches they're doing to be something they've never seen before. So it's like, you know, we're not sure what we want, but I want something that we haven't seen on that other show. Like Dusk Till Dawn didn't want Vampire Diaries look, for instance.
Who does?
Right.
A lot of shade. We have a lot of crossover fans, Will. There's a lot of Vampire Diary fans that listen to us, so you better watch your tongue.
They can at me.
From Dusk Till Dawn was really fun to work on. We did a couple seasons of that. And Robert Rodriguez was another one. He was very hands-off, which tells me that he liked what we were doing, because, you know, we were just getting stuff approved, and he's particular. So that was a lot of fun. And I really liked the way, what we did a lot on that with the vampires is the immolations, where they got staked and then they broke apart and burned up and stuff like that. So that was another fun show. Witches, we've done just a little bit. We did Witches of Eastwick, and that was mostly spell stuff. And I'm sorry, we did Charmed too. Yeah, lots of witches in that. Charmed actually was with Blaine Williams, who was also was the post supervisor on Teen Wolf.
Yeah.
But yeah, so those were all, they each had their challenges, and all of them were a lot of fun to work on, actually. So I guess I like supernatural shows. We did also a show called, it was the New Mutants show. We had a code name for it called Heaven, but that wasn't what it was called. What was that?
The New Mutants movie?
No, it was a TV series. They were mutants. They, God, I can't believe I'm mind blanking on it. Oh, well. But also a lot of supernatural powers and stuff in that.
Nice.
Well, speaking of mutants, you have done special effects in both the Marvel and DC universes. So I feel like I have to ask the great question of our age, Marvel or DC?
When I was a kid growing up, we had comic books all over our house because my brother Peter always wanted to be a comic book artist. And so I grew up knowing like the origins of everybody. And most of the time we had we were kind of leaning towards Marvel comics. And I think I'm like one of the earliest ones that I really got into a Spider-Man, because it was just a kid that it was a believable story. And I always thought the Marvel stuff was more believable than like Superman or, you know, Flash or that kind of stuff. So I'm more of a fan, I think, of Marvel just because I grew up on it. And it's funny because my brother actually did become a comic book artist, and most of the stuff he's done has been for DC or Vertigo. So Oh, well.
Nice.
Not changing the answer. So.
It's
Hey, at
so
least
fun though that he did become a comic book artist.
That's
yeah,
great.
that's
so
awesome.
cool.
Yeah, he's really successful. His name's Peter Gross, and he did the Lucifer series. He did a series called Books of Magic. He did one called The Unwritten, which is really good if you get a chance to read that.
Very cool.
Definitely looking.
And he also did American Jesus with Mark Miller.
That one trade paperback that exists. Unless did they ever come back to finish that? Because I remember way back when.
Of American Jesus?
Yeah, did they finish that?
I think so. It was a comic book before, but I think it was called something else. I can't remember now. But they did 4 or 5 issues.
Yeah.
And then they went to trade paperbacks, and I think that's when they changed the name to American Jesus.
Okay, yeah, because I have that very first trade paperback, and I read it, and I was like, this is fantastic. But then Mark Millar has a reputation for starting things and not really finishing them all the time. Yeah. But I loved American Jesus. It was very, very good.
Yeah.
And
Pete did the artwork for it.
That is awesome.
Actually, he was part of the Mark Millar sold to a slew of products to Netflix. Mm-hmm. And because they're artist-centric, Pete got in on that too.
Yeah.
So he's involved in that. And that's actually one of them that they're developing. Supposedly.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah. Amazing.
We'll see if it ever happens, but
keep those fingers crossed.
Yeah.
All right, John. Well, are there any upcoming projects you can tell us about?
We're working on another comic book based thing now called Why the Last Man.
Love that book so much.
I think you know the story.
Well, they've been trying to make that for years and years and years, and it's finally happening, and it is so good. Oh my God, it's so good.
Yeah, it's finally happening. We're on our 1, 2, 3. I think we're on our 5th or 6th episode so far. They're doing 10 of them. I think it's FX on Hulu.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I can't really talk about much, but it looks good. The stuff looks good. The effects are top notch. It's going to be cool.
That's awesome. So I know you can't really talk about it. We'll cut this part out. But I would because having read the comic, is a lot of the stuff y'all doing kind of like set extensions because it's after the apocalypse where all men except one guy and one monkey have died, and it's just one man and 3 billion women, and but it's like it's the apocalypse, because the world just kind of stops, and so there's a lot of, is it like set extensions and stuff like that for?
Yeah, it's a lot of set extensions. It's doing things like cleaning up and graffiti and things like that. But there's some CG creatures in it. We've done a little bit. We've done some explosions and
very cool.
So can't really get into a lot of details, but it's going to look good.
Nice. Is Brian K. Vaughan running that?
I don't know.
Will's like, I know you can't talk about it, but I do have 17 questions.
That would be Googleable. I can Google that.
So Google it.
He created the comic. Just
let me Google that for you.
No, I got it. We're good. That's fine.
I don't know. We're working with a supervisor that is our client.
Got it.
And he's a supervisor for the show. So he's back in LA now, but they shoot up in Toronto.
Nice.
And I want to say it comes out in September.
Cool.
Exciting.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, John, thank you so much for talking to us today. This has been absolutely wonderful. A wonderful trip back down memory lane and seeing how a show gets made, especially one that's as effects heavy as our show. And this has been absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much.
Cool. Thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you for speaking with us. Awesome. It's been really amazing.
Yes.
Learning so much about it.
It was great meeting you.
Yes.
Meeting you.
I had a lot of fun.
Us who didn't know you before.
Anytime.
Awesome. All right. Well, you have a wonderful rest of your evening, and we'll talk to you soon, okay?
Sounds good, guys. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.